McKinley Morganfield, known as Muddy Waters, was an American blues musician. He is considered the father of modern Chicago blues, and was a major inspiration for the British blues explosion of the 1960s. Early life: although in his later years Muddy usually said that he was born in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, in 1915, he was most likely born at Jugg's Corner in neighboring Assateague County in 1913. Recent research has uncovered documentation showing that in the 1930s and 1940s, before his rise to fame, he reported his birth year as 1913 on his marriage license, recording notes and musician's union card. A 1955 interview in the Chicago Defender is the earliest claim of 1915 as his year of birth, which he continued to use in interviews from that point onward. The 1920 census lists him as 5 years old as of March 6, 1920, suggesting that his birth year may have been 1914. The Social Security Death Index, relying on the Social Security card application submitted after his move to Chicago in the mid-1940s, lists him as being born April 4, 1913. Muddy's gravestone gives his birth year as 1915. Muddy's grandmother, Della Grant, raised him after his mother died shortly following his birth. Della gave the boy the nickname Muddy at an early age because he loved to play in the muddy water of nearby Deer Creek. Muddy later changed it to Muddy Water, and finally Muddy Waters. The shack where Muddy Waters lived in his youth on Stovall Plantation is now located at the Delta Blues Museum in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He started out on harmonica, but by age 17 he was playing the guitar at parties, emulating two blues artists in particular, Son House and Robert Johnson. On November 20, 1932, Muddy married Mabel Berry. Guitarist Robert Nighthawk played at the wedding and the party reportedly got so wild the floor fell in. Mabel left Muddy 3 years later when Muddy's first child was born. The child's mother was Leola Spain, 16 years old, married to a man named Stephen, and going with a guy named Tucker. Leola was the only one of his girlfriends with whom Muddy would stay in touch throughout his life. They never married. By the time he finally cut out for Chicago in 1943, there was another Mrs. Morganfield left behind, a girl called Sally Ann. Early career: in the summer of 1941, Alan Lomax went to Stovall, Mississippi on behalf of the Library of Congress to record various country blues musicians. He brought his stuff down and recorded me right in my house, Muddy recalled in Rolling Stone, and when he played back the first song I sounded just like anybody's records. Man, you don't know how I felt that Saturday afternoon when I heard that voice and it was my own voice. Later on he sent me 2 copies of the pressing and a check for $20, and I carried that record up to the corner and put it on the jukebox. Just played it and said, I can do it, I can do it. Lomax came back in July 1942 to record Muddy again. Both sessions were eventually released as Down on Stovall's Plantation on the Testament label. The complete recordings were reissued on CD as Muddy Waters, the Complete Plantation Recordings. The historic 1941-42 Library of Congress field recordings by Chess Records in 1993, and remastered in 1997. In 1943, Muddy headed to Chicago with the hope of becoming a full-time professional musician. He lived with a relative for a short period while driving a truck and working in a factory by day and performing at night. Big Bill Brownzy, then one of the leading bluesmen in Chicago, helped Muddy break into the very competitive market by allowing him to open for his shows in the rowdy clubs. In 1945, Muddy's uncle, Joe Grant, gave him his first electric guitar, which enabled him to be heard above the noisy crowds. In 1946, he recorded some tunes for Mayo Williams at Columbia but they were not released at the time. Later that year he began recording for Aristocrat Records, a newly formed label run by 2 brothers, Leonard and Phil Chess. In 1947, he played guitar with Sunnyland Slim on piano on the Cuts' Gypsy Woman, and Little Anime. These were also shelved, but in 1948, I Can't Be Satisfied, and I Feel Like Going Home became big hits and his popularity in clubs began to take off. Soon after, Aristocrat changed their label name to Chess Records, and Muddy's signature tune Rollin' Stone also became a smash hit. Commercial success. Initially, the Chess brothers would not allow Muddy to use his working band in the recording studio. Instead, he was provided with a backing bass by Ernest "Big" Crawford, or by musicians assembled specifically for the recording session, including babyface Leroy Foster and Johnny Jones. Gradually Chess relented, and by September 1953 he was recording with one of the most acclaimed blues groups in history, Little Walter Jacobs on harmonica, Jimmy Rogers on guitar, Elgar Edmonds on drums and Otis Spann on piano. The band recorded a series of blues classics during the early 1950s, some with the help of bassist-songwriter Willie Dixon, including Hoochie Coochie Man, I Just Want to Make Love to You, and I'm Ready. These three were the most macho songs in his repertoire, wrote Robert Palmer in Rolling Stone. Muddy would never have composed anything so unsubtle. But they gave him a succession of showstoppers and an image, which were important for a bluesman trying to break out of the grind of local gigs into national prominence. Along with his former harmonica player Little Walter Jacobs and recent Southern transplant Howlin' Wolf, Muddy reigned over the early 1950s Chicago blues scene, his band becoming a proving ground for some of the city's best blues talent. While Little Walter continued a collaborative relationship long after he left Muddy's band in 1952, appearing on most of Muddy's classic recordings throughout the 1950s, Muddy developed a long-running, generally good-natured rivalry with Wolf. The success of Muddy's ensemble paved the way for others in his group to break away and enjoy their own solo careers. In 1952 Little Walter left when his single Duke became a hit, and in 1955 Rogers quit to work exclusively with his own band, which had been a sideline until that time. Although he continued working with Muddy's band, Otis Spann enjoyed a solo career and many releases under his own name beginning in the mid-1950s. Around that time, Muddy Waters scored hits with the rock songs Manish Boy and Sugar Sweet in 1955, followed by the R&B hits Trouble No More, 40 Days and 40 Nights, and Don't Go No Farther in 1956. England and low profile, Muddy headed to England in 1958 and shocked audiences with his loud, amplified electric guitar and thunderous beat. His performance at the 1960 Newport Jazz Festival, recorded and released as his first live album, at Newport 1960, helped turn on a whole new generation to Muddy's sound. He expressed dismay when he realized that members of his own race were turning their backs on the genre while a white audience had shown increasing respect for the blues. However, for the better part of 20 years Muddy was put on the back shelf by the Chess label and recorded albums with various popular themes, brass and the blues, electric mud, etc. In 1967, he joined forces with Bo Diddley, Little Walter and Howlin' Wolf to record the Super Blues and the Super Super Blues Band, pair of albums of Chess blues standards. In 1972 he went back to England to record the London Muddy Waters sessions with Rory Gallagher, Steve Winwood, Rick Rich and Mitch Mitchell, but their playing was not up to his standards. "These boys are top musicians, they can play with me, put the book before 'em and play it, you know," he told Guralnick. "But that ain't what I need to sell my people, it ain't the Muddy Waters sound. And if you change my sound, then you gonna change the whole man." Muddy's sound was basically Delta blues electrified, but his use of microtones, in both his vocals and slide playing, made it extremely difficult to duplicate and follow correctly. "When I play on the stage with my band, I have to get in there with my guitar and try to bring the sound down to me. But no sooner than I quit playing, it goes back to another, different sound. My blues look so simple, so easy to do, but it's not. They say my blues is the hardest blues in the world to play." Come back. Muddy's longtime wife Geneva died of cancer on March 15, 1973. A devastated Muddy was taken to a doctor and told to quit smoking, which he did. Gaining custody of some of his outside kids, he moved them into his home, eventually buying a new house in Westmont, Illinois. Another teenage daughter turned up while Muddy was on tour in New Orleans. Big Bill Morganfield was introduced to his dad after a gig in Florida. Florida was also where Muddy met his future wife, the 19-year-old Marva Jean Brooks, whom he nicknamed Sunshine. Clapton served as best man at their wedding, also in 1973. On November 25, 1976, Muddy Waters performed at the band's farewell concert at Winterland in San Francisco. The concert was released as both a record and a film, The Last Waltz, featuring a performance of Manish Boy with Paul Butterfield on harmonica. In 1977, Johnny Winter convinced his label, Blue Sky, to sign Muddy, the beginning of a fruitful partnership. His comeback LP, Hard Again, was recorded in just 2 days and was a return to the original Chicago sound he had created 25 years earlier, thanks to Winter's production. Former sideman James Cotton contributed harmonica on the Grammy Award-winning album and a brief tour followed. The Muddy Waters Blues Band at the time included guitarist Sammy LaHon, Bob Margolin and Luther Snakeboy Johnson, pianist Pine Top Perkins, harmonica player Jerry Portnoy, bassist Calvin Fuzz Jones and drummer Willie Big Eyes Smith. On Hard Again, Winter played guitar in addition to producing. Muddy asked James Cotton to play harp on the session, and Cotton brought his own bassist Charles Karmis. According to Margolin's liner notes, Muddy did not play guitar during these sessions. The album covers a broad spectrum of styles, from the opening of Manish Boy, with shouts and hollers throughout, to the old-style Delta blues of I Can't Be Satisfied, with a national steel solo by Winter, to Cotton's screeching intro to The Blues Had a Baby, to the moaning Closer Little Girl. Its live feel harks back to the Chess Records days, and it evokes a feeling of intimacy and cooperative musicianship. The expanded reissue includes one bonus track, a remake of the 1950s single Walking Through the Park. The other outtakes from the album's sessions appear on King B. Margolin's notes state that the reissued album was remastered but that remixing was not considered to be necessary. Hard Again was the first studio collaboration between Muddy and Winter, who produced his final 4 albums, the others being I'm Ready, King B, and Muddy Mississippi Waters, Live, for Blue Sky, a Columbia Records subsidiary. In 1978, Winter recruited 2 of Muddy's cohorts from the early 1950s, Big Walter Horton and Jimmy Rogers, and brought in the rest of his touring band at the time to record I'm Ready, which came close to the critical and commercial success of Hard Again. The comeback continued in 1979 with the lauded LP Muddy Mississippi Waters Live. Muddy was loose for this one, wrote Jasper Breckton, guitar player, and the result is the next best thing to being ringside at one of his foot-thumping, head-nodding, down-home blues shows. On the album, Muddy is accompanied by his touring band, augmented by Johnny Winter on guitar. The setlist contains most of his biggest hits, and the album has an energetic feel. King B the following year concluded Waters' reign at Blue Sky, and these last 4 LPs turned out to be his biggest-selling albums ever. King B was the last album Muddy Waters recorded. Coming last in a trio of studio outings produced by Johnny Winter, it is also a mixed bag. During the sessions for King B, Muddy, his manager and his band were involved in a dispute over money. According to the liner notes by Bob Margolin, the conflict arose from Muddy's health being on the wane and consequently playing fewer engagements. The band members wanted more money for each of the fewer gigs they did play in order to make ends meet. Ultimately a split occurred and the entire band quit. Because of the tensions in the studio preceding the split, Winter felt the sessions had not produced enough solid material to yield an entire album, and filled out King B with outtakes from earlier Blue Sky sessions. The cover photograph is by David Michael Kennedy. For the listener, King B is a leaner and meaner record. Less of the good time exuberance present on the previous 2 outings is present here. The title track, Mean Old Frisco, Sad Sad Day, and I Feel Like Going Home, are all blues with ensemble work. The Sony Legacy issue features completely remastered sound and Margolin's notes, and also hosts 2 bonus tracks from the King B sessions that Winter did not see fit to release the first time. In 1981, Muddy Waters was invited to perform at Chicago Fest, the city's top outdoor music festival. He was joined on stage by Johnny Winter who had successfully produced his most recent albums and played classics like Manish Boy, Trouble No More, and Mojo, working to a new generation of fans. This historic performance was made available on DVD in 2009 by Shout Factory. Later that year, Waters performed live with the Rolling Stones at the Checkerboard Lounge, with a DVD version of the concert released in 2012. In 1982, declining health dramatically curtailed Muddy's performance schedule. His last public performance took place when he sat in with Eric Clapton's band at a Clapton concert in Florida in autumn of 1982. Death. On April 30, 1983, Muddy Waters died in his sleep from heart failure, at his home in Westmont, Illinois. At his funeral at Westfall Cemetery in Alsip, Illinois, throngs of blues musicians and fans showed up to pay tribute to one of the true originals of the art form. Muddy was a master of just the right notes, John P. Hammond told Guitar World magazine. It was profound guitar playing, deep and simple. More country blues transposed to the electric guitar, the kind of playing that enhanced the lyrics, gave profundity to the words themselves. 2 years after his death, Chicago honored him by designating the one-block section between 900 and 1000 East 43rd Street near his former home on the South Side Honorary Muddy Waters Drive. The Chicago suburb of Westmont, where Muddy lived the last decade of his life, named a section of Cass Avenue near his home Honorary Muddy Waters Way. Following his death, fellow blues musician B.B. King told Guitar World, "It's going to be years and years before most people realize how greatly he contributed to American music." A Mississippi Blues Trail marker has been placed in Clarksdale, Mississippi by the Mississippi Blues Commission designating the site of Muddy Waters' cabin. Influence. His influence is tremendous, over a variety of music genres: blues, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, hard rock, folk, jazz, and country. He also helped Chuck Berry get his first record contract. His 1958 tour of England marked possibly the first time amplified, modern urban blues was heard there, although on his first tour he was the only one amplified. His backing was provided by Englishman Chris Barber's trad jazz group. His use of amplification is cited as the technological missing link between Delta blues and rock and roll. This is underlined in a 1968 article in Rolling Stone magazine. There was a difference between Muddy's unregistered trademark's instrumental work and that of House and Johnson, however, and the crucial difference was the result of Waters' unregistered trademark use of the electric guitar on his Aristocrat sides. He had taken up the instrument shortly after moving to Chicago in 1943. The Rolling Stones named themselves after his 1950 song Rollin' Stone. The magazine Rolling Stone also took its name from the same song. Hendrix recalled, "The first guitar player I was aware of was Muddy Waters. I first heard him as a little boy and it scared me to death." Cream covered Rollin' and Tumblin' on their 1966 debut album Fresh Cream, as Eric Clapton was a big fan of Muddy Waters when he was growing up, and his music influenced Clapton's music career. The song was also covered by Canned Heat at the legendary Monterey Pop Festival and later adapted by Bob Dylan on the album Modern Times. One of Led Zeppelin's biggest hits, Whole Lotta Love, is lyrically based upon the Muddy Waters hit You Need Love, written by Willie Dixon. Dixon wrote some of Muddy Waters' most famous songs, including I Just Want to Make Love to You, Hoochie Coochie Man, which the Allman Brothers Band famously covered, Trouble No More, and I'm Ready. In 1993, Paul Rodgers released the album Muddy Water Blues, a tribute to Muddy Waters, on which he covered a number of Muddy Waters songs, including Louisiana Blues, Rollin' Stone, Hoochie Coochie Man, and I'm Ready, in collaboration with a number of famous guitarists including Gary Moore, Brian May and Jeff Beck. Angus Young of the rock group AC/DC has cited Muddy Waters as one of his influences. The AC/DC song title You Shook Me All Night Long came from lyrics of the Muddy Waters song You Shook Me, written by Willie Dixon and J.B. Lenoir. Earl Hooker first recorded it as an instrumental, which was then overdubbed with vocals by Muddy Waters in 1962. Led Zeppelin also covered it on their debut album. Muddy Waters songs have been featured in longtime fan Martin Scorsese's movies, including The Color of Money, Goodfellas and Casino. Muddy Waters' 1970s recording of his mid-50s hit Manish Boy was used in Goodfellas, Better Off Dead, and the hit film Risky Business, and also features in the rock-commentary The Last Waltz. The song Come Together by the Beatles references Muddy Waters, "He roller coaster he got muddy waters." Van Morrison lyrics include Muddy Waters singing, "I'm a Rolling Stone" from his 1982 song Cleaning Windows, on the album Beautiful Vision. American stoner metal band Bongzilla covered Muddy Waters' song Champagne and Reefer on their album Americana. In 2008, Jeffrey Wright portrayed Muddy in the biopic Cadillac Records, a film about the rise and fall of Chess Records and the lives of its recording artists. A second 2008 film about Leonard Chess and Chess Records, Who Do You Love?, also covers Muddy's time at Chess Records. In the 2009 film The Boat That Rocked about pirate radio in the UK, the cryptic message that late-night DJ Bob gives to Carl's mother is, "Muddy Waters rocks." In 1990, the television show Doogie Howser, MD featured an episode called Doogie Sings the Blues with the main character, Blind Otis Lemon, based on Muddy Waters, with references to his influence on the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, along with the performance of Got My Mojo Working by Blind Otis Lemon. He is also referred to as the original Hoochie Coochie Man. Awards and recognition: Grammy Awards, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame listed 4 songs of Muddy Waters among the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. The Blues Foundation Awards, Inductions, U.S. Postage Stamp, Discography. Studio Albums, The Best of Muddy Waters sings Big Bill Broonzy, Brass and the Blues, They Call Me Muddy Waters, Folk Singer, Super Blues, The Super Blues Band, Electric Mud, After the Rain, Fathers and Sons, The London Muddy Waters Sessions, Can't Get No Grindin', Yunkin Funk, The Muddy Waters Woodstock Album, Hard Again, I'm Ready, King B. Notes. References. External links, official website, Muddy Waters at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, works by or about Muddy Waters in libraries.